right, our essential question for today is how can I use angle relationships to find the measure of unknown angles? Complementary angles are angles that add up to 90 degrees. Like I said before, this is all memorizing things. So I'll give you some tricks when I have them. Your trick to remember that complementary adds up to 90 degrees. Complementary has a C in it. And if you add a line and a 0, that makes 90. So, here are two complementary angles. They make a right angle. They do not have to be adjacent, which means they do not have to be next to each other. But if they are, they'll make a right angle. If this is 30 degrees, what's the measurement of x? 60. 90 minus 30 equals 60. Supplementary angles add up to 180. Here's your trick. S for supplementary, 180. If this angle is 135, what's this missing angle? Okay. Supplementary angles also do not have to be adjacent, which means they don't have to be next to each other. These ones are. When supplementary angles are adjacent, they make a straight line. Straight lines are 180, right angles are 90 degrees. Here's another example of complementary angles. This could be 40, and this could be 50. I labeled them, but this is what it looks like when they're not next to each other. They're just two angles. 40 plus 50 makes 90. They're complementary. If this is 10, and this is 170, 10 plus 170 makes 180. These two aren't next to each other. They don't share a side. They're not adjacent, but they're still supplementary because they add up to 180 degrees. These are complementary angles that are adjacent. They share this side, so they make a right angle. 30 plus 60 equals 90. These are complementary angles that don't share a side. They're independent of each other, but 40 plus 50 makes 90, so these angle pairs are complementary because they add to 90.
So a complementary angle is a 90 degree angle?
It is any two angles that add up to be 90 degrees. Any two angles. All right, vertical angles are angles that are across from each other. Vertical angles are congruent. So V makes half of a vertical line. You flip it over, they're the same. Or half of a vertical angle. That's your trick. It's not a good one. But 2 and 4 are across from each other. It's two lines that intersect. Those intersecting lines make 4 angles. So the pairs that are across from each other are what's vertical. So 2 and 4 is vertical. If 2 is 105, then 4 is also 105. This one is a 1. 1 and 3 are vertical. They're across from each other. 2 intersecting lines make 4 angles. 1 and 3 are across from each other. They're vertical. 2 and 4 are across from each other. They're vertical. If 1 is 75, 3 is also 75. In this picture, for vertical angles, 2 and 3 are not vertical. They're made up of 1, 2, 3 lines. So 2 and 3 are not vertical. 3 and 4 are not vertical. But 1 and 5 are vertical lines because they make up these two lines. Sorry, vertical angles, because they make up from these two lines. But 3 is across from 2 and 4 combined, so 3 is not vertical to either of those. That's something people get wrong a lot, Kirabel. This next block is adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are angles that are next to each other. They share one side. So if we look at angle 2 right here, it's made up of those two lines intersecting at that one point. What other angle shares this top yellow line? Angle 1. And what angle shares this bottom yellow line? 4. So 1 and 4 both touch one of the sides of 2. So they are adjacent, meaning they share a side. 3 and 5 do not touch those lines. This is 5. It's not touching a yellow line. It touches the same points, not the line. Here's angle 3. It's not touching either of these yellow lines.
Which one does 4 touch?
4 touches right here. Touches 2.
4 touches. Huh?
This is angle 4. It's touching this yellow line. It's adjacent to 2. They share this side.
2 touches
2 is also touching 1 right here.
They're all touching each other. What do you mean?
Not all of them. 3 and 5 don't touch angle 2. 5 is adjacent to 3 and 4. It touches 3 and 4. 3 is adjacent to 1 and 5. These lines are part of angles 1 and 5. We'll do some more examples. All right, turn the page. Yes. Yep. This question is a test question. You need to know this. Most people understand it except for the complementary angles. So, we'll do complementary angles last. Supplementary angles add up to what? 180. So, one of those angles will need to be a big angle. Because to get 180, you can't have two acute angles. Here's angle 1. Angle 1 is 90 degrees. To get 180, you have to have another angle that is also 90 degrees. What angle is also 90 degrees? 4, because they're vertical. So, 1 and 4 are supplementary. They add up to 180. 90 plus 90 makes 180. Vertical angles are across from each other. So, here's a line, here's a line. What angles make up those two yellow lines?
4 and 3. 2 and 6.
What?
3 and 6.
Oh my gosh. Here's a yellow line. Here's a yellow line. 6 is between these two yellow lines. 3 is between these two yellow lines. 6 and 3 are vertical. Here are some orange lines. What two angles are between these orange lines?
2 and 3 and 5 and 6. 2, 1 and 4.
1 and 4.
Oh my god. And 5.
So, hey, no. Right here, these orange lines make up this angle. These orange lines make up this angle.
What about the 5?
1 and 4 are vertical. 5 is made up of an orange line and a yellow line. 5 cannot be vertical to 1. Okay, so our last one. Here's the last two lines we haven't used. These green lines. What are these? What angles are between these two green lines?
5 and 5.
5 and 2 are vertical. Vertical angles are two intersecting lines that make 4 angles. 5 and 2 are vertical from each other. 5 and 3 are not vertical. People think they are.
How are they not?
So, 5 and 3?
Yeah.
Because 5 is two green lines, 3 is a green and an orange line. Only 5 and 2 are two green lines.
Why is it orange and green?
Because I've had to use a lot of colors to show you things. It might help if I had like 5 different pictures to show you everything. Alright, I'm going to do some color coding because remember, vertical angles are congruent. So, this one, angle 4, and 1 are congruent. Right? Yes. The same measurement. 5 and 2, those green angles are congruent. They're the same. 6 and 3, the yellow angles are congruent. They're vertical. So now your vertical angles are color-coded. Orange are vertical, green are vertical, yellow are vertical. Matching colors are congruent. That's going to help us with this complementary angle one too. So remember, complementary angles add up to what?
90.
90 degrees. Can someone tell me one pair of complementary angles?
You shouted that out.
Go ahead, Spencer.
1 and 4.
1 and 4. If you add those together, you make 180. Those were supplementary angles. I need 2 angles. When you add them up, they make 90. If I... 3 and 6 are vertical. We don't know what they are.
Oh, 2 and 3. I mean 2. 2 and 3.
2 and 3 are the... Okay, please don't shout. Please don't shout.
What do you mean?
2 and 3 are the other side of this straight line. If angle 4 is 90 degrees, the other half of this has to be 90 degrees. And so 2 and 3 are complementary. They add up to 90 degrees. What is another pair of 90 degree angles? 6 and 5. And those are the 2 that are easier to spot out because they're next to each other. You can see they're making that right line, or right angle. Now, 2 and 3 are complementary. It's a green and a yellow angle. When you add up green plus yellow, it makes 90. 6 and 5 is also adding green and yellow to make 90. 6 and 3 are vertical angles. They are not complementary unless they are each 45 degrees, and we don't know that. What else is complementary to 6? 2. A yellow and a green makes 90. So 6 and 2 are complementary. What else is complementary to 5?
5. 3.
5 and 3. A green plus a yellow makes 90.
So all we have to do is a test. Wait, when's the test?
I don't know. Sometimes next week we'll have a little quiz. Alright, last one in this picture is adjacent angles. Adjacent angles, here's angle 1. I'm tracing it in blue. So here's angle 1. I want to know what's adjacent to it. Adjacent means next to. It shares a side. So angle 6 shares this blue side. Angle 2 also shares the blue side. So 6 and 1 are adjacent, and 1 and 2 are adjacent. So 6 and 2 are both adjacent to angle 1. They each share one of those sides. What's adjacent to angle 3?
4.
2 and 4. 4 and 2. It doesn't matter.
See, it doesn't matter.
Okay, we also have to use our angle relationships to solve equations and find missing pieces. So, next part, it says, given that the measure, that's what this M means, the measure of angle 1 is 3x plus 2, so let's write that down. Here's angle 1, let's write down 3x plus 2. And the measure of angle 2 is 55. Calculate the value of x. So there are 2 different ways that you can do this. What should 1 and 2 add up to? 90. So we could have the equation that 3x plus 2, that's one angle, plus 55 equals 90. Or, since angle 2 is 55, what do you know angle 1 has to be?
Something less than 55.
And what exactly is less than 55 that it would have to equal? 45, because 45 plus 55 is 90. So you could have either equation to start with. This equation will become this equation as soon as you subtract 55 from both sides.
X is equal to 10. X is equal to 10. I said that already here. Go shut up. What? That's me.
Okay.
She's not. 35.
35? Sorry. Alright, so subtract 2 from both sides. 3x equals 33. Divide both sides by 3. 33 divided by 3 is 11. So x equals 11.
What? Oh, yeah, you're right. I know.
Now, once you know what that is, to find this angle or to double check, boys, 3 times 11 is 33. Plus 2 is 35. 35 plus 55 is 90. Angle 1 is 35. What's the measure of angle 4?
30? 45. 11. 33.
What's the relationship between angles 1 and 4?
They're equal.
They are equal, and I just said angle 1 was what?
35.
So if 1 and 4 are vertical angles and they're equal, what's the measure of 4?
11.
35, because they're equal. Something I think needs to be clarified here. The measure of angle 1 is not 11. The measure, or the value of x is 11. X is not the angle measurement. The angle measurement was 3x plus 2. 35 plus 55 makes 90, not 11 plus 55. The measure of angle 1 is 35, or 3x plus 2, not 11. So, 1 and 4 are vertical. 1 and 4 are both 35 degrees.
1 and 4 equal.
1 and 4 are vertical, which means they're congruent, which means they are equal. If you know what 35 or what angle 4 is, how can you use that to find out angle 5?
A line is 180.
A line is 180. 5 is the other part of the line.
Minus it by 35.
And what is it?
Subtract it, not minus.
145.
That's the Spencer. Can I have the calculator? I got that word.
Make sure you're following along.
Hey, I got that before anybody else. Yes? Is there a problem?
Alright, so to solve this problem, the only equation you had to solve was to find out what x was. You didn't need to do equations to do in 2 and 3. You just subtract from 90 or subtract from 180. Alright, down here, yes. There is a right angle here. These two angles are complementary. I cannot find out what these missing angles are by just subtracting from 90. Yes, Nina.
Is that 148 or
145. Alright, when you add these two angles together, what should you get? 90. So to find out what x is, which we need to know to find out each angle measurement, we add them up to get 90. 8x plus 5 plus 3x plus 8. Look at this. Take these two angles, add them up. Their sum is 90. Then this is an equation that you should know how to solve. Combine your like terms. 8x plus 3x is 11x. 5 plus 8 is 13. 11x plus 13 equals 90.
90 minus 13.
Subtract 13 from both sides. 11x equals 87.
No, 70. What?
I didn't say
77.
87.
Divide both sides by 11.
It's 7.
X equals 7. Spencer. Okay, I set up an equation by taking my two angles, adding those expressions together to get 90 because they're complementary. Once I had an equation, I can solve it using the skills I have learned to solve equations. And when you solve it, you get 7. So x equals 7. How are you going to find out what each angle measurement is? Go ahead, Abby.
You do 8 times 7 plus 5, and you do 3 times 7 plus 8.
Okay, what's 8 times 7 plus 5?
61.
61, so this angle measurement is 61. What is 3 times 7 plus 8?
29.
And what's 61 plus 29?
90.
90. So we know we got the answer right. What kind of equation will I set up for vertical angles? I'm going to add them together to get 90?
No.
No, what should I do? Go, Beatrice. Okay, so a two-sided equation, and what will be on each side?
2x plus 29 equals 5x plus 2.
So, vertical angles are congruent, and what does congruent mean? The same or equal. These angles are vertical, they are directly across from each other, which means these two expressions are equal to each other. Once you set up an equation, you can solve for x. Subtract 2x from both sides to get your variables together. Subtract 20 from both sides. Divide both sides by 3. And x equals 3. That's what x is, but it says find the missing angles, not find out what x is. How do we find out what an angle measurement is if x is 3, Abby?
So you do 2 times 3 plus 5. You substitute 3 for x.
Good. Substitute it in. 2 times 3 plus 29, or 5 times 3 plus 20. What do you get?
35.
35 degrees. You should get 35 on both sides. If you don't, you did it wrong, because remember, vertical angles are congruent. Questions?
When's the checklist due?
Thursday.
We have so much Thursday.
Yep.
That's so easy.
Okay.
Where are the
I don't have any.